New Mexico Crime Files, a deep dive into the archives, shocking and notorious cases, the arrests and what led to them, and what happened to the suspect. Here are your hosts, Dean Staley and Jessica Garate. New Mexico Crime Files is sponsored by Medrano Struck Law Firm.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of New Mexico Crime Files. I'm KRQE's Jessica Garate, along with my co-anchor, Dean Staley.
Just so glad to be with you.
Another fun episode ahead.
This one is crazy.
This one is one of the most bizarre cases I think we've ever covered.
And just, we don't normally do this, but let me just give a warning to our viewers. This is some pretty crazy, dramatic, ugly stuff that was done to a human being. So if you're at all squeamish, just keep that in mind.
Yes.
What you're about to hear and the crime that was committed in this case is sort of beyond anything we normally cover.
Absolutely. There was all these twists and turns involved in this case, and just the details were horrific reading and having to report on.
And you and I, Jess, we've both been reporters for a long time. That's sort of the core of what we do. And every now and then we use the cliche, it was like something out of a movie, right? And sometimes it's rare that that's really true, right? We usually don't use that in our news coverage unless we're talking about, someone. I know we had a guy who said, I want to kill cops and, put it out there and had an assault rifle in his car and really wanted to do battle with police officers. That was one of those moments. It was like a movie. He just sort of declared war on officers, and then there was a whole week, whole afternoon of shootings with him. This is one of those, but this isn't just like it was out of a movie. This was out of a Tarantino film, right? That's the weird part. This is not just out of a movie like an action movie. This is the most bizarre, like Reservoir. I think of like Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs. I'm thinking like the craziest, nastiest sort of violent movie. Not just an action movie, but real intense violence and personal violence that you'll see in any kind of film. That's what this felt like. Like, who does this?
And the suspects in this case gets weirder and weirder. And when you find out who the ringleader is and who really initiated doing this to this man, was also shocking too.
Do you want to talk about the first suspect?
Let's do that.
Who had this issue when he was much younger?
Yes.
Because you were around for that, right?
So I was around. So eventually leads to three people. One of them was Mitchell Overhand. Yeah. And we're reporting this, and I get a call from Dick Niffing. And Dick Niffing's like, hey, I don't know if this is the same guy, but back in the 80s, there was a 16-year-old who killed his parents, buried them in the back of their yard, and he had the same name. So I would check and see if this is the same guy.
And as a good news person, you say, okay, well, we're not just going to go on gut. We're not just going to say, well, it must be him. You say, well, that's an interesting coincidence, so let's check it out. And I think the circumstances were really bizarre. Like, he even had a house party
right after,
while his parents were buried in the backyard. He had a bunch of friends over at the house. So really someone who's not right. I mean, you can't believe a 16-year-old doing something like that. Yeah.
So he serves his time, gets out, and then is connected to this other
Turns out it's the same Overhand, right? Mitchell Overhand. Crazy. And at this time, he's 45 years old now. So this is sometime
since... He had served his long sentence.
Yeah. So he's one of the suspects.
And then there's a couple. And I think what was shocking about the couple is just seeing the young woman that's involved in this. Yeah. And knowing that she was capable of doing and ordering the things she ordered was very bizarre.
And only 19 years old.
Yeah.
Right? And I have to say it, it's just kind of a weird thing to say, but, an attractive, young, you think like, wow, just somehow you look at her, she doesn't look like, and when I say that, I don't mean, how sexy. I just mean, sometimes we'll see a mugshot and you look like someone who's been on drugs for a lot of years and you just think, they've been living some horrible life and they're really, this is a person who hasn't been. This woman, to look at her, you would think, did you just graduate high school this year? Like, did not seem like the kind of person you would say had masterminded what we're about to talk about, which is a vicious, horrific murder and torture and other crimes. Just crazy. Yeah.
And I, like, to your point, we would just see her picture and she just looked very young and innocent.
Yeah,
and the stuff she did was just awful.
And had other people do for her.
Right.
Yeah. This is, insane. So we're in the newsroom. We are covering this story. And I think it's fair to say, as we covered this story, every moment was every new revelation was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, are you kidding me? Unreal.
So let's go ahead and take a look at one of the stories. This is Lizzie Mitri with the story of Mitchell Overhand back in 2017.
2 16-year-olds have been arrested, are in custody.
One of them was Mitchell Overhand. The teen was sentenced to 40 years in prison for shooting and killing his parents while they slept at their Paradise Hills home in 1988. Investigators said after the shooting, Overhand beat his mother with a hammer until she died and then buried them both in the backyard before throwing a party at the house. Overhand got out of prison 7 years ago and was off probation about 2 years ago. Now Albuquerque police are looking for the 45-year-old for a kidnapping that happened last week. Court documents show the alleged victim said he went to this house in the Westgate area near 98th and Tower after a friend texted him that he wanted to buy marijuana. When he got there, he says a group, including Overhand, knocked him out, tied him up with duct tape, and beat him with a baseball bat for hours, claiming the guy owed drug money. The victim says they forced him to look at a picture on a computer of his best friend, John Soyka, dead and sexually mutilated. After about 4 hours, the victim says it was Overhand who yelled for everyone to stop the beating, saying he believed what the guy insisted all along, that he didn't know anything about the drug money. The victim says Overhand dropped him off near Sandia Prep High School, saying, "You have been spared. Don't talk to the cops." 45-year-old Mitchell Overhand walked into district court this afternoon, the first time we've seen him since his charges for kidnapping and aggravated battery, and decades after he was convicted for killing his parents in 1988 in their Paradise Hills home. He was 16.
I'm sorry.
This time, police arrested Overhand, Chase Smotherman, and overnight, Chase's 19-year-old girlfriend, Mariah Ferry, for beating a man at Chase's home in the Westgate area with a bat and a stick. The victim told police his attackers forced him to look at a computer screen with a picture of his best friend, John Soyka, dead and sexually mutilated, telling him, "Look what we had to do." The victim says it was about drug money he knew nothing about. And after 4 hours, Overhand told everyone to stop and they let the victim go. The case launched an investigation into Soyka's whereabouts. Now police are trying to find the person who helped these three 2 weeks ago when they were stuck in the sand somewhere west of Rio Rancho but east of the Rio Puerco. They were driving a Chevy Silverado similar to this with the license plate AAZL91. And police say knowing exactly where that happened could help in finding Soyka. In court today, the state asked a judge to hold Overhand in jail on no bond. His defense argued that until now, Overhand hadn't picked up new charges since getting out of prison in 2010, and that Overhand was the one to stop the beating he's charged with.
He's probably the reason this person's alive.
The judge decided for the safety of the community, Overhand would stay behind bars.
I am going to grant the state's motion to detain Mr. Overhand.
Gosh, seeing him as a 16-year-old back then, and he just seems so cold and callous about what he did.
And let me give everyone the context for people who don't remember it exactly, but Paradise Hills, right? So you're talking about a nice suburb of Albuquerque. This is like just middle America. This is just and you look at him, he seems like a normal high school kid in that part of town. The fact that he killed his parents was just shocking and bizarre and so out of...
And it was a horrific murder. Like, he killed both his parents but kept beating his mother, and after she was dead, then buried them in the backyard, then throws a party like nothing happened. It was a very, very strange case.
Yeah. And let me, I don't want to do a spoiler here, but let me tease our audience with the idea that Mitchell Overhand, who's 45 years old at this time, killed his parents when he was 16 and did his time. He is the least part of he's the smallest part of the problem with this whole kidnap torture thing. He's the one that ultimately they say, well, he was involved, but he wasn't the worst. That's crazy to me.
He wasn't the worst, and that he got some credit because he stopped it.
Yeah,
he was the one that they wanted to kill him too. They wanted to kill this other victim too.
Yeah.
But he was the one that stopped it and said, "Hey, no, we're going to let him go."
New Mexico Crime Files is sponsored by Medrano Struck Law Firm, New Mexico's trusted personal injury attorneys with nearly 40 years of combined experience, fighting for the justice and compensation you deserve. Call 505-217-2200 or visit MedranoStruckLaw.com today. Let's get back to New Mexico Crime Files.
Yeah, so let's spell this out. You have 45-year-old Mitchell Overhand, right, who had killed his parents. You have Chase Smotherman, who is really part of the real motivation behind this whole kidnapping, abduction, torturing, horrific acts. And then 19-year-old Mariah Ferry. Smotherman and Ferry are boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yes.
Right? So you have these three torturing for 4 hours this victim in this case.
And they just do awful things to him and then make him look at a picture of what they did to his best friend. Yeah, which was horrific.
Yeah, so they have him bound, they're torturing him, and then they pull up on the computer, hey, look at this. And he's looking at a picture of his close friend who has been killed, obviously, and sexually mutilated, right? That's, and to be fair, I haven't seen those pictures myself, but you just can't imagine this guy thinking, well, this is the end for me. The entire time, the motivation here is Smotherman and Ferry thought that Soyka, who was killed, he was these are pictures of Soyka who's been killed, and his friend had robbed them of cash and drugs, right? So they're saying, look what we did to your buddy. We're going to do this to you unless you tell us where the money and the I think it was pot, the marijuana is. And he's thinking for sure this is the end of his life.
And he testified to that, saying, I just thought for sure I'm going to die. He was looking at those pictures, and it was, again, Overhand that stepped in and said, hey, let him, we need to let him go.
Well, and listen, let me point out something that's interesting here too, Jess, and we know this from covering this story. No one thought to look for John Soyka. Right? Is it John Soyka? Is that right?
Yes.
So no one thought to look for Soyka until this came out. So, he was moving in circles. He wasn't, working full time. He's not that kind of citizen that was, he didn't show up for work today. No one had really seen him fall off the radar. But then when they see the pictures, they're like, this guy's missing and he's not alive. And we need to figure out where his body is. That's what they were looking for. But it only came about after this guy got tortured.
Right?
Yeah.
And they let him go.
So then they start this whole missing body, basically, investigation to try to figure out what happened to him. Yeah.
Yeah. That set off a series of events. And you're thinking, like, how can people do this to other humans? And we got an inside look and an explanation from one attorney. It was Chase Smotherman's attorney who sat down with Christmas Key back in 2020 and kind of explained what was going on during that time. I mean, there's still no excuse, but he really, once he got off of drugs, really realized, like, he just woke up from, like, this nightmare. So this is Chris McKee with the story. He sat down with one of the suspects, that is Chase Smotherman's attorney.
He's incredibly remorseful. The person who died was a good friend of his.
Attorney Brian Pori is speaking for his client, 32-year-old Chase Smotherman, who may now spend the rest of his life in federal prison for the murder of John Soyka.
The person who died, his family was Chase was friendly with that family.
Police say Soyka was kidnapped from an Albuquerque home, brutally beaten, killed, and dismembered in August 2017 by Smotherman and his then 19-year-old girlfriend, Mariah Ferry, after Soyka and another man broke into the couple's home, stealing marijuana and cash.
He thought he could handle it and like I say, exact some street justice, and it all went terribly, terribly wrong.
Today, Smotherman took a plea deal in federal court to 2 kidnapping-related crimes, both of which were captured on graphic cell phone video that a jury would have had to watch in trial.
Mr. Smotherman did not want to put the victims and the victim's family through the trauma of a jury trial.
Pori says Smotherman's drug addiction led him to taking Soyka's life in reaction to the home break-in.
He grossly overreacted. He felt that his best friend had betrayed him.
He says Smotherman is now ready to accept the consequences.
Anyone who's ever battled a drug addiction will tell you, when you stop being a drug addict, it's like waking from a nightmare. You can't believe the things that you've done. And I know that Chase felt that way.
Jess, as reporters, we're not supposed to have opinions, really?
Right.
I got to tell you, watching this defense attorney defend Chase Smotherman as a guy who abducted this man, tortured him, showed him pictures of the man that they had killed. And he's sort of saying, well, he's incredibly remorseful. And you have to understand, this was a good friend of his, right? I mean, that is crazy to me. Like, it also hurts him because he did this to a friend of his.
To his own friend.
Okay. And there's this absolute just blaming it on the drug. Like, he was doing drugs, and so he did all these things, and he just woke up, and he was like, I can't believe I did everything like that. So that to me sounded, and to be fair to the attorney, that's your job as the attorney, as a defense attorney, is to put your client's actions in the very best light. So whether those are his earnest opinions, I don't know. Right? It could just be saying, I'm a professional. I have to present the best side of my client always. That's what I get paid to do. I don't know how he really, or maybe those are his real feelings. Maybe he feels differently. But I was just shocked by the defense attorney talking about it as though, he was a good friend. This is his best friend. This is really painful for what? Like,
you caused all of this. You did this to him.
Yeah, he knew Soyka's family.
And it's hard to feel sorry for someone who did something so horrific and awful to both those victims. Like, can you imagine just sitting there and seeing your friend pop up and seeing what they've done to your friend?
Yeah.
Like, for the other victim, like, it's just, the stuff they did was just terrible. I also thought, like, one of the things that stood out to me in this thing is how he mentions that, like, he didn't want to have, they had video of it. They videotaped all of this.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to have to show it to jurors.
Yeah.
And thank goodness they didn't have to show it to those jurors. Like, could you imagine the trauma and the, like, having to see what those people did to this man?
But again, Jess, that actually, when I see that attorney saying, he really didn't want to put everyone through that, like, or maybe he didn't want the jury to see what he absolutely did the whole time. So he's saving everyone a bunch of trouble. Like, really? Or is he saving himself some trouble? Because making a jury relive that makes sure, all right, you absolutely ensuring that you get the absolute, like, harshest penalty that they can deliver. So I thought that was another one of those, when you hear a defense attorney say that and you think, oh, what a great guy. He pleaded guilty to kidnapping.
So they don't have to,
because he didn't want to put the victim and the victim's family through that. What a great guy. And to say he overreacted. He was just going after some street justice because he thought this guy, because this guy had robbed him, and things just kind of got out of hand. He thought, well, street justice was, when did that become just okay? I was just going to kidnap and beat him, and I don't know how it got worse.
Mutilate
than
him.
Like, yeah, that sort of accidentally happened. Just the most insane. I also want to point out, Jess, I'm sorry, I'm rambling now, but if you've been following this story and when they were out there burying the body, there were, and police, when they said, okay, John Soyka is missing, we know his body's out there, we know he's been mutilated, they were looking for the people who were in a red pickup truck who had helped these people when they got stuck in the sand out on the West Mesa. And for people who don't know, this is, west of Albuquerque, but east of the Rio Puerco, which is the next river. It drains down into the Rio Grande further south, but it's out in the middle of nowhere, right? This is just, arroyos and sand, and so you get stuck in the sand out there, someone comes to help. Think about that moment where you're helping these horrific people who have tortured and killed and mutilated someone, and they're looking, either they're just buried the body or they're looking to bury the body. Can you imagine being, it's like, you talk about out of a movie.
You want to be a good Samaritan and help these people, like, and you have no idea who you're helping.
But that feels to me, again, like a Tarantino movie, where they're helping them, and the whole time, you're
there's
like,
a body in the
There's like
truck.
No Country for Old Men, right?
Exactly.
With the bad guy, and he keeps rubbing up against ordinary people, and it's like, oh my God, they have no clue how close they are right now to death. Right? If someone had said, what are you doing out here? Or something. I mean, these were not reasonable people.
No.
So that haunts me a little bit, that you could be out there, you stop to help someone, and you find out, oh, I know why you're out here. You're out here because you're burying a body. That to me was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Chase Smotherman received a 45-year prison sentence. He was sentenced for murder, kidnapping with torture, and drug charges. Federal investigators also charged Mariah Ferry and Jose Torres federally for the crime. Court documents showed that the 19-year-old Ferry masterminded the kidnapping and torture over the drugs. And we have Courtney Allen. She was in federal court when the two pled. This is from February 2020.
The final suspects in a gruesome kidnapping and murder case in Albuquerque have taken plea deals in federal court. News 13's Courtney Allen joins us tonight with details. Courtney.
Dean Mariah Ferry pled guilty today to 2 kidnapping-related charges in the murder of John Soyka, sharing gruesome details in her written statement. Soyka went missing in 2017. His body later found in a shallow grave in a rural area outside Albuquerque. According to court documents, then 19-year-old Ferry conspired with her boyfriend, Chase Smotherman, as well as Jose Torres, to abduct Soyka and another man after the men broke into Smotherman's house, stealing marijuana and cash. Soyka was reportedly living in Torres's garage at the time. Torres texted the couple when Soyka was home, knowing they planned to harm him. Ferry said they blocked the exit while Smotherman beat Soyka with a baseball bat. Then they put Soyka in the trunk of Ferry's car, binding his hands, ankles, and mouth with tape. Next, Ferry said she hit Soyka's legs with the blunt end of an axe while he was tied up, and Soyka died shortly after. Ferry then said they mutilated his body in a shed nearby. Next, her and Smotherman lured the second man involved in the burglary to their home, subsequently assaulting, binding, gagging, and torturing him for hours. The couple showed him a picture of Soyka dead and said the same would happen to him unless he showed them where to find the stolen drugs. She said they did what they did to get the drugs back and, quote, serve as a lesson to others. Torres also pled guilty today for his part. He said he was only present for what happened inside the garage, and he was paid for his involvement with meth. Smotherman entered his guilty plea last month. Back to you.
All right, Courtney, thank you. Sentencing hearings have not yet been set. Federal prosecutors are recommending 40 to 60 years in prison for Smotherman, 30 to 40 years in prison for Ferry, and 14 years for Torres.
Just unbelievable.
Just dropped, John.
Yeah.
You just, I mean, and we lived through this, Jess. We reported on it, month after month after, all the updates. We're going back and reliving this, and you just can't believe. And what does this come out of? People dealing drugs and living in that world and being on drugs and living in that world, and there's no thought to the value of human life. There's no thought that, these were best friends, kidnapping and torturing each other, best friends. This is, you think about how far down people fall who get involved in these kinds of just outrageous, horrific crimes, and it all goes back to that sort of this culture of being around drugs and money, and that's what feeds all this.
My thought the whole time watching that story is just no regard for life. They do this to this one man, and then are ready to do it to this next man too.
Yeah,
and they would have done it if as we had mentioned earlier, Overhand wouldn't have stopped it.
Yeah, and
so just zero regard for life. It was a shocking case, and I just think all the crazy twists and turns in this, it really was just stood out to me.
And this last piece really was insightful too. It's like, oh, wait a second. John Soyka was living in this guy's garage, and then when he came home to his garage apartment or whatever, his landlord calls Smotherman and Ferry and says, he's home, come get him. And then they block him from leaving, and they tie him up, and they beat him with a bat, and then she beats him with the blunt end of an axe, and then after they kill him and mutilate him, they stash his body in a shed, and then they're looking for his buddy. Right? Okay, we didn't get it out of him. He didn't tell us where the money is or where the drugs are. Let's go after his buddy. So they're looking for their next victim. Just horrific.
Horrific. So Mariah Ferry was sentenced to 30 years in prison in June of 2020, and Jose Torres was sentenced to 14 years in prison at the same time. So Ferry's going away for 30 years, which I thought was kind of a light sentence for all the stuff that they had done.
Yeah, that does seem sort of light, doesn't it? And let me circle all the way back. Mitchell Overhand, 45 years old, killed his parents when he was 16. He turns out to be the good guy, right? When you're the good guy in this, and you took part in this whole thing, but you're the good guy because after they tortured this guy, showed him pictures of his mutilated friend, it was Overhand who said, you know what, guys, let's let him go. We've had enough. He's had enough. We're done here. And because of that, he got off lighter.
He had 4 years. They wanted him to go to get some help for his addiction problems, but he had such a serious crime of murder and in his background that they're like, okay, you're going to need to finish out that sentence. So he did serve 4 years.
No, I had forgotten that. Just the court system tried to get him, as you mentioned, drug help, but and this happens. Maybe people don't know this. If you have serious offenses, there are some drug programs that say, no, we don't take those people. You've sort of done too much. You've crossed the line. You can't be around our people. So he wasn't eligible, which I'd forgotten that. That's an interesting point. Yeah.
What a case.
Yeah. So, Jess, maybe next time here on New Mexico Crime Files, we'll bring it down a notch.
Yeah, I think it's time.
Yeah, we need something to cleanse the palate next time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but we'd like you to tune in and watch no matter what we have, right? We'll have another good one.
Yes. Thank you for joining us.